All right, everyone. Welcome to Pass or Fail, making the move to software as a service. Our presenter today is going to be Dave Cohen, who is the ISV practice manager here at Apprenda. We're going to go through the deck, and at the end, we will have room for questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can put those into the question module in GoToMeeting, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. So we'll let Dave kick things off right now.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know we have people from all over the world joining us right now for this this webinar on making the move to SaaS. I want to introduce myself. Again, I'm Dave Cohen. I'm the ISV practice manager for Apprenda. So I run the worldwide ISV business, really the SaaS business for Apprenda. Some of you might know a little bit about our company. Some of you might not. I'm going to go through a little bit about what Apprenda does later on in the slides. But really what I want to do today is give everybody on the phone a good understanding of what it takes to move your business to a software as a service cloud-enabled model. And some of the things that we've seen out in the marketplace that a lot of companies are doing as best practices, some things that companies are doing that aren't best practices, and just some of the observations. I've been working with Apprenda for over a year now, come from a virtualization and storage background, understand cloud at a pretty high level, and think that I'm sort of serving on the front lines of the SaaS industry right now, talking to so many different companies on a weekly basis worldwide that are trying to change their business model. So with that being said, I'm going to get into it, and at the end, we'll hopefully have some time left over for some questions. And again, if you want to follow some of the things that are happening with Apprenda or in the industry, there's my Twitter handle, Dave_Cohen. So give me a follow, and usually have some good things going on and some good insights. So obviously, we all understand that today is a cloud-driven economy. I remember about 5 to 7 years ago when I was working heavily in the virtualization market, cloud became the big buzzword. And there were some people that I worked with that were some thought leaders that didn't necessarily believe in the cloud. I'll tell you what, those people, I've talked to them recently, they're all believers now. I don't know how you can't believe in the cloud, because it is real. What the cloud is up for interpretation. There's a lot of different companies giving a lot of different meanings and definitions of the cloud. But that we can put aside right now. What we do know cloud is this overarching theme of on-demand services. And it's changing the perception of the entire IT industry, especially software. One thing to be said is companies now have to be proactive. You cannot be reactive. If you're going to be reactive, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and you're going to be beaten by some of these market challengers that are almost coming out of nowhere. If you go back in the last decade, there was a few large CRM products that were mostly on-premise products that were really defining the CRM industry. A little market challenger, unbeknownst to anybody named Salesforce, really came out of nowhere and changed the CRM software industry overnight with a really great CRM product. But the basis of their CRM product was the underlying infrastructure that allowed it to be a software as a service product that could be accessed from anywhere. So there's lots of market challengers, and I've talked to hundreds of them over the last year or so that are in stealth mode right now that are coming out to sort of eat your lunch. Or maybe you're one of the market challengers that want to eat everybody else's lunch. So it's going to be a different environment coming up in the next few years for software and how people are going to be consuming it. Main thing is, you want to be proactive and you don't want to be left behind. You want to maintain either your market domination or be able to challenge the best of them with world-class architecture underneath your application. So what we're trying to create here, I know it's a little cheesy, but SaaS superheroes. So you want to be able to go back to your company after this and say, hey, I got some good ideas on how we can move our product to SaaS or how we can continue the progression. Obviously, there's companies that are in different phases of where they are with cloud, but at the at the end of the day, really, you want to be the best, and you want to be able to have a product that can just compete and really hit home with your audience. That's what I think becoming a SaaS superhero is. So it's company-wide, it's user-wide, it's everything. So the agenda for today's presentation, really I want to set the table for everybody. What is SaaS? We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to get into a little bit of the competitive edge of SaaS, some of the upfront architectural SaaS challenges, why your approach to SaaS is everything. I think that's huge, because the approach you take today is what's going to define your product tomorrow. How are my peers rolling out SaaS? We're going to give you a little insight into what we see and sort of the themes we've seen. And then finally, we're going to end with a successful foundation for software as a service delivery in operations. So, setting the table, what is SaaS? SaaS, at the very basic, is software as a service. It's software that's developed and hosted by a vendor or an ISV, independent software vendor, and accessed by end users over the internet. So that's the basic SaaS definition. It's just being able to access that software over the internet. It's also referred to as hosted or on-demand software. So that's what you see out there today. There's a lot of different names. Some people say they're SaaS, but they're not really SaaS. But really, when I'm talking about software as a service, it's those pieces of software that are accessed over the internet by your end users. You've heard about ASP, application service providers. I look at those, and my company looks at those differently than true SaaS providers. It's very easy to get to market as an ASP provider because you can just spin up a VM or set up a server in a data center, and you're off hosting somebody in the cloud. So you say. But an ASP is really just one instance per customer. But when you break it down, there's sort of the economies of scale don't really add up in ASP. So if you're really going to have a lot of customers using your applications and trying to become a real cloud-driven software provider, ASP is not going to really get you there. It's not cost-effective down the road. Your cost of goods sold just starts skyrocketing, and the operational aspect of having an ASP model just gets out of control. So you may be able to have some level of customization for your customers, but say you have 1,000 customers and each one of them wants customization. That's not the best way to go to market in our eyes. When we're looking at true SaaS, it's scalable and it's really one size fits all. That's the way you're going to be most profitable in the cloud and being a SaaS provider. With real SaaS, you're going to have great economies of scale underneath your application and be able to just scale on a dime. Multi-tenant approach, we believe, is really key to a real SaaS offering, serving up one code base for all of your end users and tenants. So those are the big differences that I'm looking at, and I'm going to get into those a little bit more. So how does SaaS create your competitive edge? This is really just some things I've put together. Some of them are just common sense. Others are through talking to all these companies that are going to SaaS or already are SaaS providers. The biggest thing is the competitive differentiation in the software marketplace. Customers today, the cloud is everywhere. You can even just turn on the TV during the Super Bowl. There is to the cloud commercials. There's a lot of talk about the cloud. Apple's really vested in the cloud. It's really everywhere. So people, they want to buy into this notion of the cloud. And savvy customers, that's how they want to acquire and use their software in today's economy, cloud-based software. Consistent and recurring revenue streams are what SaaS is really going to give you. It's going to eliminate those peaks and valleys that you see in traditional software sales. When you're selling an on-premise piece of software, obviously there's a whole sales process involved. You sell them your box software. Maybe they're going to set it up on their own infrastructure. They're going to have a consultant come in sometimes for bigger setups, and actually sometimes they spend a lot of money setting those up, especially when you're looking at the healthcare industry for EMRs and EHRs. Some of these huge EHR providers. In my old job, I used to sell a lot of infrastructure and virtualization to people that were setting up to lots of doctors' offices and hospitals, and they would spend millions sometimes on their infrastructure costs just to host the software. So that can be a thing of the past sometimes. But really what I'm talking about is eliminating the way that you sell your software. If you can sell it on a recurring revenue basis with monthly payments, annual payments, it's much different in your sales process than just that one-time sale, and then you have to go out and really start prospecting again for the next customer. The ease of operation is another aspect of a competitive edge for SaaS. You can do releases and patch rollouts and updates very easy, and the life cycle is very fluid to deal with. So if you have a really good SaaS product, rolling out updates should be a very easy process. Again, if you're looking at the ASP model, you're going to roll out updates. Updating 1,000 users or 1,000 tenants could be a huge process. Now, if you have 10,000 customers, that process is going to get even crazier. You could write some pieces of code that are going to help with the update process, but I don't think that's the business you want to be in. I worked with one customer that was, I think they had around 1,000 hosted customers in their data center in an ASP model. Just to update those 1,000 customers took them 3 months because they only did updates on weekends. So it's 3 months working every weekend to update those customers. So they couldn't roll out updates all the time if they wanted to because there just wasn't enough time in the month or the year to do that. Also, the low friction sales process sort of goes along with the consistent and recurring revenue stream. But it's easier to gain agreement for your customers if you're selling them on a recurring revenue stream type of basis or an annuity business. And finally, new value to your customers. With a SaaS model, since it's on demand, they can access it from any computer really. Sometimes they're smartphones, depending on how you're building this product. There's going to be global access to all team members. So wherever they are, they can get into that mission-critical piece of software and access it. I use a lot of SaaS-based products in my business. I know a lot of my old customers are looking at SaaS-based products, so it's happening. The shift is occurring, and it's real. So you really got to get out there and figure out, maybe you're not going to shift your whole company to SaaS, but maybe have an on-premise offering and the SaaS offering and sort of manage both of them for a time being and see which one really does better. I'm sure customers, if you offer them SaaS, you're going to have a subsection of customers that are going to go for it right away. So obviously, when you're going to build your SaaS product, let's take a step back now. And you're at the drawing table with your development team, and you're going to figure out what do we have to do to get the market as a SaaS-based product. There's a lot of upfront challenges that come into play, and sometimes you're not aware of all of them. You think you might have everything figured out up front. Then you get to market, and something throws you a curveball, and you're not really sure how to deal with that with the way your product is architected. So there's a lot of things that have to come into play. Some of the questions that I see out there all the time, how do you handle multi-tenancy? And we're going to get into these questions much deeper, but I just wanted to throw some of them out there to you right now. How to roll out new releases, patches, how you're going to handle managing subscriptions, how you're going to provision new customers, how you're going to build in authorization. Do you build it in? Are you going to build metering, monitoring, billing, all those pieces? As you grow, how do you scale out that app? Are you going to offer free trials? That's a big piece of SaaS, is the ability to offer free trials with little to no overhead as well. Because if you're offering up free trials and somebody has to spin up VMs or provision servers and then make sure that they know how long that free trial lasts for, it could be a headache. If you can do it very easily, which I'll show you ways to do that, you could be way ahead of the market in that aspect. If you have a product that people like and they can use it for free, they're going to probably still use it after that free trial. How do you automate features and operations? And then the biggest one is, how fast can we get the market? The shift is occurring. You want to get the market as fast as possible. It could be a long time to get the market if you're just starting today. So there's a lot of different ways and different tools out there that could help you get the market and get the market fast. This is a little piece that I've used over the years, and used to call it the SaaS-iceberg. Now it's just the SaaS-BERG. And it's sort of painting a picture of what it's like to become a SaaS provider. So really just setting this up, you've decided to move your company to SaaS. Now you're designing it and building the necessary business processes and technical infrastructure to really deploy that SaaS option. Obviously, it can be a new build or a port. But the main things you're going to look at on the surface, you want to get online. You just want to get that application online and serve it up to your customers. You might have some multi-tenancy built in, and you might have some customization. A lot of people think that as long as they have this, they're good to go, and they're a SaaS provider, and they can start onboarding customers. Obviously, this is an iceberg for a reason. You only see a little bit of it, and I think it coincides well with this week, the anniversary of the Titanic. So you don't want your SaaS offering to go down like the Titanic. You might see a little piece of this iceberg and think you're okay, but there's a lot underneath that you really have to take into account and build into your application up front, otherwise you're going to have a disaster. Pieces like subscriber management, the release of major and minor updates, a testing framework, how are you going to do your testing of that application, application and feature level pricing. You want to build in user systems. You want to build in role-based application access, so different people can have different access to different things, different roles. You want support for everything you need to actually make money off of this. The metering and billing and technical support, places you're going to charge. There's more. So scalability, you want to make sure that it's scalable. And we're going to repeat some of these things throughout the slides, but hopefully it doesn't get annoying, because I think they need to be driven home, because they're big things. And I've talked to a lot of companies that have gone on the market, thought they had it all planned well, and they crash and burn. There was a big case just recently in Australia of a company that went to market, thought they had it planned out well, and they were a large software provider, and they did not plan well enough, because their updates were horrible, things were going wrong, and they were all over the internet and blogs about how bad people were having a time with the entire process of their SaaS offering. So you don't want to be that company. I'm not going to name them, because I think we're actually talking to them again. But the other piece is entitlements. So user entitlements is huge. Federated identity is a big piece, because a lot of companies are using many different SaaS offerings. They want to be able to either attach those to their AD, their Active Directory, or other pieces of their federated IDs, so they have one universal login for everything. So that's something else you got to think of. Lifecycle management, infrastructure management, again, free trials. And then there's a lot more that comes to play that I don't even have time to write on this slide, but obviously it's out there and things you have to do. So obviously SaaS is an iceberg, and there's a lot more sitting underneath the surface that you really have to take into account. Then the other big piece that you have to take into account is that you're shifting the way you do business. You're shifting from just a software manufacturer to a utility provider, really, because now that you're a SaaS provider, you're in charge of everything. You're in charge of the end user experience. So you've got to make sure that those economies of scale are up to par and they're efficient. So there's definitely upfront costs that are going to exist if you want to have the proper economies of scale, just like your utility company at home. So they had to build out the power grid and everything like that, but as they onboard new customers to the grid, it's much cheaper. All they have to do is usually run some wires to the house or the building or anything. Lower ongoing cost of customer acquisition is what we're really talking about. As you build out, it should be much lower to acquire new customers. And then obviously operating costs are a big piece. A lot of companies I talk to don't even take into consideration what it takes to operate a SaaS business. If you're really going to build it out big, there's a lot of operational aspects that come into play. So you want to lower those ongoing operating costs and make them manageable. The biggest thing I see that people take for granted is quality of service. Being the utility provider, you're in charge of quality of service of your end users. If the quality of service is not optimal and the end user experience is not where it should be, you're going to lose customers. You live and die by your quality of service. So that's a huge thing. You want to make sure you have a great infrastructure and architecture underneath your application that's going to give you the best chance to just have the greatest end user experience available. Because there's going to be those market challengers. There's going to be those other companies. All the big guys are either in the SaaS market or getting into it now. You want to make sure you can compete with them and make sure that you deliver the best product possible, because it's up to you now. So why is your approach to SaaS everything? And it really is everything. The way you approach this from day one is huge. SaaS is an operationally intensive service business, like we've already hit on. Also, you're going to have to pay for your servers, your bandwidth, your staff, all the licensing that goes into it, all the operational aspects. There's a lot of things that go into play into this business that you didn't have to pay for before, that now you do. You want to make sure you have those costs contained. So that comes into effective cost management. That's going to allow for higher margins and a very sustainable growth. So if you can distribute the costs of everything you're putting into this product amongst your customers and generate those efficiencies at scale, you're going to have a great product and you're going to have a great business that's going to be able to grow and grow very well. Cost of goods sold is the biggest piece of this business. So however much it costs to get that software into your customer, your end user's hands, and allow them to consume it is huge. It's directly linked to the actual architecture of the SaaS offering. So the more efficient you build that architecture out, the better resource allocation and utilization, and the better you can distribute your costs amongst everybody. So it's a big thing, and it's really everything when it's coming to this business. So if you don't build this correctly, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money really bad, and you're not going to know how to actually fix it, because now you're going to be just trying to stick Band-Aids everywhere and solve fires instead of actually being able to focus on your business and your core business. So the architecture that is required for market leadership, I think, is very simple. And maybe you need all of this, maybe you need some of it, but if you have all this, I think you're going to be able to get your product to a market leader potential. First of all, multi-tenancy. It's the ability to service multiple clients simultaneously from an application. So the big thing you got to remember is multi-tenancy has got to be built into all layers of the app, including the user interface, the business layer, and the database. Then code execution has to be isolated from customer to customer. Customer-specific resources have to be protected. And then customer data has to be partitioned. So security is a big piece in the multi-tenancy. And then a lot of these multi-tenant decisions have to be made at design time of the application. So how are you going to store customer data? Is it all going to be in one database? Is it going to be in different table sets? Are you going to mix them together in a single database and partition it virtually? There's a lot of different questions that come into play. Those are only a few of them. There's a significant amount of work when it comes down to it that must be invested to implement real multi-tenancy at all levels. And like I said, it has to be addressed at all layers of the application, and it has to be continuously maintained going on. So multi-tenancy could be a huge aspect that you have to manage outside of your business logic, the user interface, and everything else. Again, another big thing is onboarding new customers. So the way you onboard these new customers is huge, be it online subscription access, the ability to process billing, the workflows that you have instilled in your application to actually onboard those customers, the setup of network resources, granting access to specific customers. Those are all pretty big things. Another big thing is flexible featuring, bundling, and pricing capabilities. So you want to have price plans, feature sets. You want to be able to offer multiple pricing plans sometimes. You got to be able to manage contract durations, add-ons. I'm listing all these up. It might be a little boring, but these are a lot of things that I've talked to people about that they just didn't really realize they had to do up front and thought that they could just put a few things in and they're good to go. But there's other things. You got to engineer a framework that allows for really the ability to track specific pieces of that code that are billable. You got to meter the usage of your code. You got to coordinate the usage with different price points. Then you got to have pricing that really meets the needs of your different market segmentations. And then you got to, if you consider this stuff up front, it's going to slow you in the time to market, because you're going to have a lot of different people involved in your company, a lot of different, sometimes, you know what they say, too many cooks in the kitchen, they spoil the, what is it that they say? They spoil the soup? I don't know. They spoil the recipe. But you want to make sure that you can handle this and be able to handle it well. And there's other pieces. There's back office subscription, billing, and revenue management. So you want to be able to track things even on a granular basis. You want to be able to track your add-ons, your purchase features, your meter transactions, and all those other functionalities you're going to be able to sell with your product. The big thing is you have to build a system that's going to be able to track those things and be able to handle things like expirations, and there's a lot of other pieces. So you got to be able to handle all the pieces of your SaaS business. And then you need to expose that data to your back office billing systems, or the people at your office or your company that are in charge of handling those pieces. Also, you're going to have to update, you're going to have to actually write new codes. If you're going to do updates or change pricing, you're going to have to actually write code for that pricing change. And just a side note here, I worked with a company that, another company in the healthcare business actually, and they were making a change to their on-demand offering. They wanted to add another pricing set or another pricing plan. Just to add that extra pricing plan and make it work with the code in their application, it was I think about a 4 to 6 week process, and it cost them almost $200,000 in internal developer hours. So it was a big process, and that was just making some changes to the pricing. Another piece is data partitioning and data isolation of the architecture. You want to make sure, again, that things are working correctly and you're able to partition data, because you're going to be dealing sometimes with different industries, different regulations, and different regulatory environments. You want to make sure that you can adhere to these compliances, and then also hit that with your architecture. So having to build and maintain different data segregation models, that could be very time-consuming for you. And you might use a data mixing model like a commingled database approach, but that might not be okay for some of your other user groups. So you need to take that into consideration as well. And then finally, user systems, roles, and authentication. So big thing is you want to authenticate against the app to log in. Then you want to be able to restrict access to different parts of the application or different functions. Again, I think federated identity comes into here. These systems are not really mission critical. So user systems and everything, they are mission critical, but they're not. They're not your core application. So it's a big, big time sink to build these pieces in and keep managing and operating these pieces of your business. So I think those are the main things for SaaS architecture that you really need to take into consideration when you're going to market. The other side is once you are to market, so your application's built, now you're going to have to worry about operations and managing that SaaS business. Some of the pieces that come into play here, release management. So release management is really building in those pieces. So what if you have to do like some cutover technologies, if you're going to move your customers from one update to another, how are you going to dynamically reroute your customers to the newly deployed version? Those are all questions you have to know. Ability for business teams to modify pricing structure in real time. That sort of goes off the last slide, but there's got to be the ability to modify pricing metadata through like a web interface or something like that. So your product managers can actually go in without having to talk or worry about the dev team helping them and make some pricing changes on the fly. So you can actually react to market demand and make sure that you're delivering the right pricing for your market. It's a big thing I've also seen where some companies go to market, they think they have the right pricing figured out. They get to market and people are consuming their application in a different way, or they're just not buying at all because the pricing did not hit the mark. So then you have to go back to the drawing board and change pricing. And sometimes if you can change it on the fly, it's much easier. So that's another aspect you want to take into consideration. Choosing where to host. So some companies have the luxury of having their own data center where they can host it, but a lot of SaaS companies I talk to don't have their own data center and want to host in various places. So you got to decide where you're going to host, and you might want to start with a cloud provider, but what if you grow bigger and it's not the right structure for you and you want to move it? So say you started on like Amazon and one day wanted to move to Rackspace. You're going to have to change everything to move over usually. So you want to make sure that you have the ability to choose where you host and make your application portable if need be. Another thing is application lifecycle management and sandbox testing. So you just want to make sure that you have the ability built into your application and your product and your architecture to do testing, sandbox that application, and handle all aspects of lifecycle management. So when you're to market, obviously there's going to be bug fixes needed. There's going to be patches. There's hopefully going to be major updates. You're going to want to be able to get those out to all of your customers in a very easy manner. Because if it's a large process and customers have a lot of downtime, it's not going to be good for your end users or for your bottom line. So you want to make sure that that's all taken into consideration. And then finally, customer support capabilities. You want to be able to support your customers and support your customers very well. So you need to weave integration logic into all relevant points in your application code base. And then you want to be able to expose that data through customer interfaces to your support teams. So really the main thing is everything that's happening within your application is also accessed by your support teams and available to your support teams during operations and management. So I think those are the two big pieces, the operations and the architecture. If you don't have those in place and know what you're doing, you're going to have some issues going to market as a SaaS offering. So let's shift a little bit. We've talked about what it takes to really build out a good SaaS model and manage and operate that SaaS model. Now how are you going to get there? You can build those pieces yourself, and we've seen a lot of companies do it on their own. It's normally, from what I've seen on average in the industry, it's about a 12 to 18-month process to build in the first phase of SaaS and get to market. And then obviously there's a lot of other pieces that they have to build in and optimize after that. But normally, I'd say it's more so on the 18-month side from what I've seen with companies we've worked with or talked to. So that's what you're looking at if you're going to build yourself. Then again, do you outsource the build? Do you do it internally? How are you going to handle that build? And then there's the buy scenario, where you can buy a platform that helps you go to SaaS and go to SaaS extremely fast. Apprenda being one of those platforms. So I want to actually show a little bit about what Apprenda does. But this is a good interpretation I just wanted to put up there for you guys. So it shows upfront dev costs, ongoing operating expenses, and then time to market. If you look at the orange line, that's an ASP model. Obviously, you can get to market with a short time to market. It's going to be low dev costs, but then the ongoing operational aspects are extremely high, and that's what usually hurts the bottom line in most ASP models. You could build SaaS. That's your red model there, your red line. There's a much longer time to market. Your development costs are extremely high, and your operating costs are still medium level because you have to build in pieces and keep operations internally, make sure you have a team that's focused on operations. And then there's something like Apprenda, where the blue line there. The medium time to market, very low dev costs on your side, and the operating costs are just lowest that we've seen in the market. So ongoing operations with something like Apprenda is extremely low and helps you keep scalability in the forefront. So it should be as easy to operate your SaaS model with 10 users as it is with 10,000. And just one use case I want to throw up there, and again, this use case is another large healthcare software provider in the U.S. The thing with a lot of our customers, it's unfortunate for me since I'm on the sales side of Apprenda, a lot of our customers don't want people to know that they're using Apprenda underneath their application because it's a competitive advantage for them in the marketplace. They've gotten to market fast. They're able to be very agile and competitive. They don't want other people to know what they're using and what their secret sauce sort of is. So a lot of our customers aren't completely referenceable. Some of them are, but this one is not, but I think it's a good story still. It was a build versus buy decision when we started talking to them, and they were doing the ROI models on what it's going to take to build some SaaS and what it's going to take to just buy a platform. They tried actually building on their own for a while, and I'd say about 4 to 5 months into this build, they said, whoa, this is a very daunting task. It's much more than we expected. How are we going to even keep this going after we build it? Let's look for something that can help us out. So they expected, these guys, I think it was 18 to 24 months they were expecting to build with only core features. We got involved. After they purchased the platform, they were to market in less than 60 days. And I think that's the higher end of the spectrum for a lot of companies that we've looked at. They used a lot of different pieces of our platform, and we have APIs that you can use as well. So they used almost everything. And it took them about 60 days to optimize everything. I've had customers that have gotten to market in a couple of weeks. Normally the average is about 30 days. It depends where you are with your actual application. But so these guys cut down from about 18 to 24 months to 60 days to market, and they're doing extremely well in the marketplace now. So this is a good interpretation of what it takes to really get to SaaS. So here you can see you have your actual application. You have your user interface, your business logic, and your database. If you're going to build, in a normal build scenario, you're going to have to build in the multi-tenancy, the user system, the security, the scalability features, pricing, billing, etc. All these things are non-strategic. They're difficult to build in. They're time-consuming. They're costly, and it doesn't make sense because it's not your core business. That's not where you want to focus your business on. You should be focusing on the user interface, the business logic, and the database pieces, so you can be able to have the best application possible in the marketplace. The delivery mechanism and infrastructure shouldn't be your focus. So this is without Apprenda today, and again, it's sitting on any hardware. Using Apprenda, everything that you had to build in is now taken care of, from the multi-tenancy down to the provisioning. You can sit on any hardware, be it in a data center, and you're in a cloud offering. As long as it's a Windows-based infrastructure, Apprenda can run on it. And you can put multiple applications on one instance of Apprenda. So you could have 5, 10, 15, 20 applications running on the Apprenda platform, all utilizing the same management systems and the same infrastructure for SaaS delivery. And then also, you could utilize the same databases if you want to. I'll actually get into that a little bit. So you can see how we sort of changed the game for SaaS. And one question I know that comes up a lot, where does PaaS come into play? So Apprenda, when it comes down to it, is really a platform as a service. We're much different than all these other companies that say they're SaaS enablement frameworks. We're not a framework at all. We are a platform as a service that does SaaS enablement. So you actually run Apprenda on any infrastructure you choose. We sit below your applications and above your infrastructure, and we institute a runtime for your applications. So we instill multi-tenancy into a single instance application. We instill the user system into the applications. We're built for scalability in the way that we stitch together any number of servers sitting below us into really a grid of compute resources. The underlying infrastructure can be virtualized. It can be bare metal servers. It doesn't matter. We can really take any type of infrastructure that's Windows-based and tie that all together, and then also allow for the best and most optimal usage of that underlying infrastructure through our runtime. And we also have a load balancing mechanism built into the platform. So there's actually two use cases for Apprenda. One that we're talking about today is obviously software as a service and all the things we give to applications for software as a service. The other piece is we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, a lot of enterprises around the world that have a lot of internal .NET applications, and they want a standardized way to deploy, run, and manage all of their internal applications. So they'll use the Apprenda platform as an internal private platform as a service behind their firewall. So that's the two use cases. It's really the same product, and you can use it for either or for both. So the way Apprenda handles SaaS, and this is all the functionality that we give you right out of the box. Zero effort multi-tenancy. As I said, there's some load distribution and high availability built into the platform. Product management, usage, metering, and billing. So Apprenda will meter all the entitlements and the usage. Application lifecycle management. We have different portals where you can go in and manage your application and your underlying infrastructure. And you can actually take your application through different levels of lifecycle, say sandboxing, for testing and dev. You can bring it up to production. You can archive it. There's many different ways, and you can manage it all through the Apprenda management portal. Subscription management is taken care of by Apprenda. Access control, customer onboarding. We have another portal that you can make accessible to your end users if you so choose. Some of our customers make it accessible. Some of them don't. Some of them just use regular web interfaces for sign-on. But it's really up to you. And a customer could go in through our end user portal, which would look and feel just like your application. Again, nobody knows you're using Apprenda. And they would be able to handle the onboarding process, and they could actually self-service their own accounts. They could sign up new users. They could change plans. They could add different features to their account. They could pay. We handle really everything through there. And also service management and configuration and contextual logging are also handled by the platform. So again, without Apprenda, we're figuring about 13,000 developer hours to build these things in, and it's a lot of money to build all this in. A lot of time, a lot of money, and you got to really decide how you want to get to market and how you want to do this. It's up to you. One thing I didn't point out, Apprenda, we're specific to the Microsoft stack. So as of today, we only work with software that's built in .NET. We don't support Java as of yet, and we're focused really on Microsoft technologies. So .NET applications with SQL Server backend. I apologize because I don't really know of any other companies out there that do exactly what we do for everything. There are a few other ones, and if you have some questions, you can feel free to email me about, and we can talk later. One thing I also wanted to point out is a big piece of going to SaaS is the tenancy model spectrum. So this is a huge piece of how you're going to actually manage and deploy your software and how you're going to set it up. If you're looking at the left end of the spectrum, that's sort of the ASP hosted model. You have one operating system, one database, and one application for each tenant. You can institute some virtualization in there and virtualize the operating system, but you still have one DB and one instance of the app for every tenant. It's not dense, it's not efficient, and the costs are much higher there. What Apprenda offers and what I think a good SaaS company needs is these two models. You have an isolated database approach or a commingled database approach. Isolated is still using one instance of SQL Server, but you're isolating the databases within there. Or you can commingle everybody into one huge database and manage it that way. So the overhead is very low. It's very dense. You cut down on licensing costs because if you're doing it in an ASP model, you have to buy one instance of SQL Server licensing for everybody going forward. That's a lot of money going forward. So if you're doing it this way, you're going to cut down on licensing costs. You can also leverage cross-customer data in both of these models with us. So you can aggregate the data across all your customers and use that for testing, for market research, really whatever you want to do with it. But the big thing I want to point out on both isolated and the commingled is there's one instance of the application code for both. So you can use the same code you're using for on-premise today in the cloud and have all your customers hit that one instance of code. And you can put all your tenants on top of that. So it makes it very efficient and very effective to go to market this way. And with Apprenda, if you're going to go isolated or commingled, it's just a button click. When you're about to launch your product, you just click isolated or commingled approach, and you're good to go. It's very simple. Not much thought has to go into it, except which way you want to go to market. We actually have some customers that do both isolated and commingled. So they have a version that's isolated and a version that's commingled, and they actually upcharge their customers if they want to have their information put into an isolated database. So that's just an idea that I've seen some customers implement. And then the big question is, how do you run an Apprenda? It's a very simple process to get going, either if you're porting or building a new app to run an Apprenda. You start, again, with a regular .NET app using SQL Server. Really, you're just going to change some connection strings. You can, that's really the big piece there. If you have your own user system or authentication built in, you're going to have to marry your user system with our user system. So that's sometimes a little bit of work, but not much. From there, you're going to integrate our APIs into your code base that deal with like metering and billing and security and users, etc. And then you're going to upload to Apprenda. And our algorithm is actually going to transform the database to a multi-tenant database, put multi-tenancy in all layers of the application, and deploy that app across the grid that we've created with the infrastructure underlying. That's it. At that point, you're running as a full multi-tenant SaaS-based solution with a really great platform underneath you. From there, you can create different price books, different functionality and combinations, and also do testing of your application. It's all managed through our platform management portals that come with the platform. There's a developer portal, an end user portal, and then an operations center portal that actually looks at the underlying infrastructure and all the logging and everything. So you can also make different roles and different entitlements for your development team and your product management teams, different aspects of the portal as well. So not everybody can have access to the development portal per se, or making changes that could affect the application. It's really up to you. We give you so many options and such granularity on how you can go to market that you really have no excuse but to really put out a great product and to become either that market leader or that challenger that's going to just take share from everybody. And our product is built for scalability and elasticity, so you can just grow, 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 and not worry about these huge operational costs. I just want, going back to that customer that was hosted with 1,000 end users or 1,000 tenants, if they were going to go up to 2,000 or 3,000, they were going to have to hire 2 to 3 more people just to help manage that infrastructure. By using Apprenda, they could keep their staff the same size, and it was just as easy to handle their current infrastructure as it was what they figured 5 years down the road with over 50,000 tenants using their application. So that's all it really takes. And then this is a good representation of what it sort of looks like once you're up and working on Apprenda. So the green is your application. The blue is our platform, and then obviously the infrastructure underneath. So our platform is going to handle all those pieces we've already talked about. But I think this just shows it very well in a nicely formatted slide right here. So you have your operations administration, your business management, and your user self-service, all the pieces that come along with them. I want to point out quality of service execution is in there. So using a platform like Apprenda is going to give you such a great foundation for quality of service that it's going to be very easy. And then all the other pieces, the multi-tenant runtime, the metering, the automation and management, scale out and resiliency mechanics. If one of your web services goes down, Apprenda will know that. Instead of giving a 404 message or an error message to your end users, we'll just do a slight delay as we fire up a new web service on the back end. So we're self-aware and we're self-healing at the platform level. If you're using a framework that you're going to use in for multi-tenancy in your development, it's not going to help you with the operational aspect or anything like that. There's a lot of frameworks out there that say they do what we do. Really, they've just come on one of our webinars, tried to steal some of our slides and say they do all this to try to compete against us. But I've never come in contact with another company that does what we do. We have a very large jump on the competition, so we're sitting in a good place right now as a company. Yeah, just a little background on us. We're a 5-year-old company. We've done a few rounds of some hefty VC backing. We've got some huge customers using the technology, which I'll show you in a second, and we're a very healthy company. We've almost tripled since I've been here in a year in size, and you'll see a lot of blog entries about us out there, a lot of articles, a lot of analysts talking about us. We had Gartner and Forrester working very closely with us. They love our technology. There was an analyst that said, if you're .NET and you're going to be SaaS, you have to use Apprenda. I mean, that was a pretty big quote from that guy, but there's a lot of people that have got a lot out of using our product. So our value that I sort of want to end with for everybody is we're going to give you a true SaaS offering with minimal effort. We're going to get you to market. We're going to get less operational burden on your developers. We're going to allow you for improved responsiveness and efficiency, better margins and improved economies of scale going forward, then increase quality of service and decrease provisioning times for your end users, more defined focus on core businesses. Worry about your core business. Don't worry about the stuff that Apprenda handles, because there's a company like us that handles that now. So just focus on the core business and going to market that way. Greater competitive agility. That's the biggest thing. You're going to have such agility and be able to compete at such a high level using a platform like Apprenda. So I think that's our big value to everybody. Obviously, there's much more. All our customers get different types of value out of our product, but these are the big ones that I wanted to point out. So sampling of some of our customers, just to point out that we do have some good customers. Symantec, Honeywell, Quest Software, Diebold, Intrinsic, which is actually owned by AmerisourceBergen, which is a Fortune 50 company. Market 6, we work with a lot of startups and SaaS challengers out there that I can't name, that are either going to market now or launching within the next 6 months or so, and should be pretty impressive products. And then a lot of large enterprises. We work with a lot of the largest banks in the world, and we're engaged with a lot of Fortune 100 companies now on the platform as a service side. The big thing is, even if you're going as SaaS, you can have the power of a proven enterprise-grade platform as the foundation for your SaaS business. So that's a huge, huge value for you guys, for everybody listening today. You can have what's working for some of the largest companies, even if you're not the largest company, because we can scale our product to meet 2-man shops as well as we can to work with these Fortune 500 companies. So that's really everything I have for you guys today. I don't want to take up your entire hour. I want to have some time for questions. I hope you got a lot out of this. Obviously, there's a lot to go over. So I urge you to reach out to me. If you have some questions, if you want to learn more about our product, because again, with our product, it's like an iceberg as well. I only scratch the surface. There's a lot more our product does, and I'd like to show you more of that if you want to take the time. So there's my email, dcohen@apprenda.com, or my direct line, 518-348-8117. Feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, email is probably best. Not in the office all the time, but always checking my email all day long. So no matter where you are in the world, I'll get back to you, and hopefully we can help you get to SaaS soon. Even if it might not be the right fit because you're not .NET, you still want to bounce some questions off me, I'm more than willing to do that. Feel free to reach out to me as well for that as well. Like I said, I work with a lot of SaaS companies, so I've seen it all, and I think I'm a good judge of what it takes to help you guys get to where you need to be. That's all. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hand it back over to Josh, and hopefully we can answer a few of your questions.
Yeah, and again, if anyone has questions right now that they're thinking of, please enter them in the question module on GoToMeeting, and we'll see if we can get to as many as we can. First, I just want to respond to a quick question about the slides, if they're going to be available. If you're interested in a copy of the slides, just email Dave at the address that you see on his screen, dcohen@apprenda.com, and he can send you a copy of the slides. So please ask whatever questions you like, and we'll start off with do the apps deployed on Apprenda have to be web apps in the first place, Dave?
So I just want to preface me answering these questions with, I'm not in the technical side, so I don't want to, if I can't answer it, I'm not going to give you the wrong answer. I'll get those answered for you. So if I don't answer your question today, just reach out to me with an email and we'll get those answered by my technical team. But do they have to be web apps in the first place? No, they don't. We've worked with customers that some of them are client-server apps, so that's something we can actually talk about more, but they do not have to be web apps. If they are, even better, but they don't have to be.
Could you talk about how the Apprenda platform is different from a framework offering, and could you even maybe explain how the code execution is managed on Apprenda? So
I can't get too deep into that, but what I do know, so we're different from frameworks in the sense that a framework you're going to use really during development, and it's your application is completely tied to that framework. So if you're developing with a certain framework, you're now tied to that framework forever. And if it's not working right for you or anything, you're going to have to go back to the drawing board and rebuild your application not using that framework. The framework's not going to handle deployment or operations ongoing, but it will help maybe with instilling some multi-tenancy or some other pieces into it. With something like Apprenda, you're not tied to our platform. If you were to take your application off our platform tomorrow, it would be your same exact application. It would just lose some of the things that we instill into it, but you'd still have your same code base. So we don't make any major changes to your code base. That's a big difference between a framework and what Apprenda does. So we are not a framework whatsoever. Does
Apprenda care about what kind of application access the end users have to the application? For example, does this only work with web apps, or can it work with applications delivered through, say, Citrix XenApp?
So it won't work with an application really through Citrix XenApp. That's a whole different way to deploy your applications. So it's a different delivery mechanism altogether. So it's really just web-based applications, or we could talk more if you want to get deeper into that. I'd like one of my technical teams to actually take that up as well. But don't really work in conjunction with XenApp.
Naturally, there's a couple questions about the licensing model, so could you talk at least as much as you can briefly about that?
Yeah, so the reason there's not a lot about licensing on our webpage either is because it's mostly custom licensing at this point. Our company's still the size where we can do that, and we like to make sure that we don't that we have the right sized platform for everybody. But the way we size the platform and licenses is based on gigabytes of RAM and the underlying infrastructure. So it's really tied to memory. So you can have as many applications running, as many end users. We don't charge for anything other than just how big of a platform you're going to run, and it's usually a max. So some of our customers will start at one place and have their license at a max level, and you can always add more availability to the underlying platform. So, but that's really the only way we limit our licensing, and we can definitely talk more about that one-on-one. So if you're more interested in that, give me an email, and we can definitely talk deeper about that, because I need to understand your application much more before we usually get into licensing. And there's a lot that goes into it, actually. It's not, so we'll take that one offline.
There's a few questions about the recording of this webinar. There will be a recording available, and if you go to the same place on our website where you signed up for this webinar, where you registered, you'll be able to access the video there, probably by the end of the day today. We have a lot of questions, Dave, and I don't know if you're equipped to do this, if we could maybe look at the platform.
There's actually one question I think I saw pop up too, one other one, just that I wanted to answer really fast, about us in Azure. So we are very complementary with Microsoft. We work extremely closely with Microsoft. Our dev teams work very closely with Microsoft dev teams. So there's no worry on our end that Azure is going to offer what we do at the moment. I don't think that's on their roadmap from what I know, and Azure is a very different product. That being said, there might be some really cool things that come out in the future with a friend at Microsoft that I can't talk about publicly right now, but just know that we're if you're based on Microsoft technologies and you want to go to SaaS, and we're a very good option, and we have the blessing of Microsoft. So that's another thing that we can talk offline. But Azure is very different from what we do. It's not really purpose-built for software as a service. And just a quick side note, we did a proof of concept with a customer that actually built their application on Azure, and we replicated some of the things that Azure does. It took them about 6 months to build in for Azure. We replicated that in the first 20 minutes of the POC. So I don't think we're not a competitive force with Azure. We don't compete head-on with Azure at all. It's two very different things. So just wanted to throw that out there because it comes up a lot.
Oh, good.
What was your other question?
And there's just a few questions about if we could see the platform. And I didn't know if you had access to it.
I do. We're actually running out of time. But what I wanted to do is just, if you guys want to take a deeper look at the platform portal, we could bring you through that after we talk a little bit about your project and tailor a demonstration that meets your needs. Because there's a lot that our platform does, and there's a lot of different ways we could look at the portal. But the better I know your application, the better we can actually show you the right places in the portal that are going to make sense to you. So, and I'd like to have a technical resource with me at that point in time as well, so we could definitely give the platform its due. So that's probably going to be another webinar, actually. This is a series of webinars we're putting together, and this is just the first one. So there might be some deeper dives coming up in the next month or so. So stay on the lookout for those. Any other questions out there? There was one that I saw about where do customers host Apprenda, and I think I hit on that. But some of them I said host in their data center, others host in cloud hosting providers, and I've seen them hosted everywhere from Amazon EC2 to Rackspace to Savvis to Terramark to Tenzing to really any hosting provider that can spin up Windows-based infrastructure you can host on. So we don't get in the way of that. We're not a hosting company. We license our product, and you can host it wherever you want. So I think that's it. We're running a little over on time today. So again, I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time out of their busy day to take a listen and learn a little bit more about what we feel makes a good SaaS product, and then how Apprenda could help you in making the move to SaaS. Any other questions, again, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be in touch very soon.